There's a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix, kind of fatigue that lingers even after you've rested. You wake up, and the heaviness is already there, not in your muscles, but in your chest, in your breath, in the spaces between your thoughts. You say, I'm just tired, but you don't mean physically. You're tired of pretending you're okay. Tired of smiling when you feel like crying. Tired of carrying the weight of a life that looks fine on the outside, but quietly aches on the inside. Emotional fatigue is invisible. It doesn't show up on scans or lab reports, but it leaks into everything. It dulls your joy, numbs your excitement, shrinks your world. It makes small tasks feel like climbing mountains. You forget what it feels like to feel light. The world tells you to push through, to grind, to hustle, to achieve. But how do you push through something that's not even physical? You're not lazy, you're not weak. You're carrying more than anyone sees, and that's exhausting. Every unspoken fear, every swallowed emotion, every moment you chose silence over conflict. Every time you showed up when you wanted to hide, it all adds up. Emotional weight doesn't evaporate, it accumulates. And eventually it asks to be felt. But we don't always know how. So we distract ourselves with work, with noise, with helping others. We stay busy because stillness feels unbearable. Healing doesn't happen in motion. It happens in pause, in presence, in the quiet moments we usually avoid. When you stop, the truth begins to whisper. You're tired because you've been surviving. You're tired because you've been strong for too long. You're tired because you're human. The culture glorifies burnout. It rewards self-abandonment. It says you can rest once you've earned it, but rest is not a reward, it's a right. Especially when your heart is bruised, especially when your soul feels thin. Emotional exhaustion isn't fixed by a nap. It needs space, it needs gentleness. It needs truth. You're allowed to feel what you feel. Even if you don't have the words yet, even if no one else sees it, you're not making it up. You're not imagining the heaviness. Your body keeps the score, and right now it's begging you to listen. To slow down, to stop proving your worth through output. You are not a machine. You are a living being, and you are allowed to be tired, not just from work, but from worry, from grief, from everything you've had to hold alone. It's okay if you don't bounce back right away. You're not behind. You're healing, and healing is not linear. Some days will feel better, some won't. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're being honest with yourself, with your limits, with what you can no longer carry in silence. Fatigue isn't the problem. It's the messenger. It's asking you to pause, to acknowledge your humanity, to remember that tiredness is not failure. It's feedback from your soul, whispering, please take care of me. You don't need permission to rest. But if you're looking for a sign, this is it. You are not weak for being tired. You are strong for noticing, for not pretending anymore. For choosing softness in a world that demands steel. You are allowed to exhale, to stop, to begin again, gently. You've been told to just get more sleep. But what you need is more peace. Sleep doesn't fix a restless heart. A nap won't clear the clutter in your mind. Because this tiredness, it's emotional. It's the weight of all the things you didn't say. It's the tears you swallowed. The disappointments you minimized. It's the silence after you laughed at something that wasn't funny, just to keep the peace. It's the small betrayals of yourself that pile up quietly. And one day your body says, enough. Not through words, but through weariness. You try to push through, but everything feels heavier, like gravity has grown stronger overnight. You think maybe I'm just lazy, but you're not. You're not broken. You're just tired in ways that can't be seen, in ways that can't be fixed with coffee. The world often forgets the inner load we carry. It sees smiles, not the strain behind them. It sees productivity, not the pressure. It sees your to-do list, not the emotional cost. You show up every day, even when your heart feels frayed, even when your soul is whispering, please stop. You keep going because it's what you've always done. Because stopping feels scarier than moving. But there's another way, a quieter way. One where rest is not a last resort, but a rhythm. Where listening to your feelings isn't a weakness, but a practice of strength. Emotional fatigue is often mistaken for lack of motivation. But really, it's your body protecting you, saying you've done enough for now. Let's just breathe. Some days you won't want to talk, won't want to engage, won't want to show up. And that's okay. Your value doesn't disappear when your energy does. You don't have to earn your right to pause. The world will keep spinning, but you don't have to. Stop chasing the version of you that never gets tired. That person doesn't exist. You're not here to be constant. You're here to be real. Some days, being real looks like saying no. It's like choosing silence over noise. Like staying in bed with your thoughts instead of rushing out to distract yourself. Like crying without having to justify it. You're allowed to feel without performing. You're allowed to rest without guilt. You've been strong for so long. But maybe strength now means softening, letting go of the pressure to impress, releasing the grip of should. Maybe your tiredness isn't a flaw. Maybe it's a guide, leading you back to yourself, to a pace that fits your heart, to rhythm that includes breathing room. This isn't giving up. It's tuning in. It's unlearning the urgency that made you abandon your own needs. You don't need to justify your exhaustion. You don't need to earn your rest with suffering. You don't need to explain why your soul feels heavy. Emotional fatigue is quiet, but it is real. And it deserves compassion, not just from others, but from you. When you feel yourself fading, pause. When you feel overwhelmed, breathe. When you feel like you can't keep up, let go. You are not made to carry everything. You are not made to be invincible. You are allowed to step back, to say, I need space, to say, I need time, to say, I can't do this today. These are not signs of weakness. They are signals of wisdom. Tiredness speaks in whispers, in sighs, in slow mornings, in aching hearts. Listen before it has to shout, before your body breaks what your voice refuses to express. Be tender with yourself. It's not just when you're thriving, but especially when you're worn out. The world may rush, but you can choose to slow. You can choose rest. You can choose peace. It's not as an escape, but as a return to the softness you forgot you deserved. Sometimes your body is tired from all the pretending to be okay, pretending to be motivated, pretending that everything is just busy, when really you feel lost. This kind of fatigue isn't solved with a weekend off. It's soul deep. It lives in your shoulders, in the silence between messages, the way your smile fades as soon as no one's looking. You wonder why a full night's sleep doesn't help, why the vacation didn't fix it, why the coffee doesn't work like it used to. The truth is, emotional exhaustion demands more than a break. It asks for honesty. It asks for feeling. It asks for change. Sometimes, what you really need is to grieve. To mourn the version of you who always had it together. To mourn the dream that didn't go the way you planned. To mourn the effort you gave and didn't get back. Fatigue often hides sadness, or fear, or frustration. And when you never let those feelings speak, they settle into your bones, till even getting out of bed feels like an act of defiance. Some days you might feel numb. Other days, everything hurts. You bounce between I'm fine and I can't do this, and the gap between those two gets smaller and smaller. But here's something gentle to remember. You don't have to perform your healing. You don't have to post your progress. You don't have to impress anyone with how well you're coping. Sometimes the bravest thing is to sit quietly with your pain, to admit that you're not okay, and not rush to fix it. You are not behind. You are not weak for needing rest. You are human. And being human means sometimes you break down, and that's okay. Breaking down is not the same as giving up. It's often the first step to softening, to finally hearing what you've been pushing away. Maybe the reason you're tired is because you've been ignoring your inner voice, the one that says, please stop proving. Please stop pretending. Please just be with me. That voice is your truth. And truth is the beginning of rest, not comfort, but relief, because it's tiring to lie to yourself, even gently. You were never meant to be perfect. You were never meant to be endlessly productive. The world may celebrate hustle, but your heart celebrates presence. And presence means slowing down. It means noticing how the light falls across your room, how your breath softens when no one needs you, how stillness can be its own kind of healing. You don't need to fix your tiredness right away. You need to understand it. Where does it come from? What stories is it trying to tell you? Maybe it's pointing to the parts of your life that feel out of alignment. Maybe it's whispering that you've been too accommodating, that you've said yes too many times when you meant no. You've given too much of your softness to people who don't handle it gently. Emotional fatigue is not random. It's a message. It's an invitation to reevaluate, to ask, what am I carrying that isn't mine? What am I avoiding because I'm afraid of falling apart? What would happen if I gave myself permission to rest? Really rest? Not just sleep? But to be unapologetically still, to let go of expectation, to disappear for a while, not to escape, but to recover. You don't owe the world your constant presence. You don't owe anyone a polished version of yourself. You only owe yourself the truth, even when it's messy, even when it doesn't make sense. Fatigue is your nervous system's way of saying, this isn't sustainable. Soften into that message. Make space for it. Let your tiredness guide you inward. Let it teach you what kind of life you truly want. One built not on performance, but on peace. Not on urgency, but on understanding. Not on being everything to everyone, but being enough for yourself. It's okay to rest, even when nothing's wrong. Even when people don't understand. Even when your mind says, keep going, you're allowed to stop. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to feel tired, still be whole. That is the beginning of real rest. Fatigue doesn't always look like slumped shoulders and sleepy eyes. Sometimes it wears a smile. A sure, I can do that. A calendar full of things you didn't want to say yes to. You become a ghost in your own schedule, moving from task to task, wondering when you'll feel like yourself again, if you ever will. The problem isn't that you're not strong enough. It's that you've been strong for too long without a place to fall apart. Strength, without softness, becomes a cage. You learn to hold it together so well that no one sees you unraveling. But somewhere deep down, you wish someone would notice. Would say, you don't have to keep doing this. You can rest now. But the world doesn't always offer that, so you must learn to offer it to yourself. To become the person who says it's okay to stop, even if nothing's finished. Even if people expect more. You cannot pour from a cup that has been empty for years. And you shouldn't have to. The ache in your chest isn't laziness, it's longing. Longing for a life that feels kind, pace that doesn't leave you breathless. A way of being that allows you to exhale. But how do you rest when everything feels urgent? When your mind won't let go? When rest itself feels like failure? You begin small, with one breath. One moment of stillness that you protect fiercely. Maybe it's turning off your phone for an hour, saying no to one invitation, drinking tea without scrolling. Tiny acts of resistance against a world that always asks for more. Each one whispers, you deserve peace, not after you finish everything. But now, even while things are undone, especially while things are undone, peace isn't a reward, it's a right. Sometimes reclaiming it looks boring, unimpressive, invisible. But you'll start to notice something.
Hi.
When you make room for rest, your nervous system thanks you. Your breath deepens. Your thoughts slow. Your inner voice grows softer, and in that quiet, the real you begins to surface. The one who doesn't need to be constantly productive to feel worthy. The one who remembers how to feel, how to notice beauty again. How to enjoy a moment without documenting it. That self is still inside you, waiting patiently, hoping you'll make space for them. Because you weren't born to be exhausted. You were born to experience aliveness. Aliveness doesn't mean constant doing. It often begins with undoing. Undoing the beliefs that say you're only valuable when you're busy. Undoing the fear that rest equals laziness. Undoing the pressure to be endlessly efficient. Who would you be without those stories? What would you choose if peace was the goal? You don't have to abandon your responsibilities. But you can approach them differently. With softness, with boundaries, with the understanding that you are not a machine. You have limits, and limits are not flaws. They are sacred. They are the contours of your humanity. And honoring them is how you begin to heal. Even if no one else understands. Even if it goes against everything you've been taught. You are allowed to make rest a priority. Even if your to-do list says otherwise. Even if the world keeps spinning. Because when you honor your need for rest, you create space for something deeper. Presence, clarity, peace that doesn't need a reason. There is a life available to you that isn't ruled by burnout. A life where you don't dread the day before it begins, where your worth isn't tangled up in your output, but rooted in your being, in your breath, in the quiet courage it takes to slow down. The courage is already inside you, waiting. You just have to listen, honor it, trust it. Take one small step toward rest. Today, fatigue isn't always about sleep. It's about carrying too much for too long without being seen. It's about holding everyone else's needs while yours go unmet. It's smiling through pain because you don't want to be a burden. It's waking up tired even after 8 hours of rest. Because it's not your body that's weary, it's your soul. Your soul doesn't recover through sleep alone. It needs space. It needs gentleness. It needs someone to say, you don't have to keep pretending. So many of us live like we're running a race no one asked us to enter, competing silently for approval, for recognition, for peace, but the finish line keeps moving. Every milestone achieved adds another burden, another thing to live up to, another standard to maintain. And so the exhaustion grows deeper. You begin to wonder, is this just how life is? But it's not. Life was never meant to be constant performance. We weren't meant to live in survival mode, always proving, always doing. There is more to you than your usefulness. You have value even when you do nothing, even when you pause, even when all you did today was breathe. Rest is not a detour from the journey. Sometimes it is the journey. The part where you finally hear yourself again, where the noise fades, and you notice how tired you've really been, how much you've ignored in the name of keeping it together. But what if you don't have to keep it together anymore? What if healing begins with letting things fall apart, the false roles, the silent obligations, the idea that you have to be everything for everyone? It's okay to put them down. It's okay to choose your own breath, even if it disappoints others, even if no one else understands, because your healing is not for their comfort. It's for your freedom, and that freedom may not look dramatic. It may look like staying home, like not replying immediately, like deleting the app that keeps you comparing your life to strangers, like finally admitting, I'm not okay. That honesty is a doorway. Behind it is relief, peace, spaciousness, the kind that lets your shoulders drop, lets your chest expand, lets you take up space in your own life again. You are not weak for being tired. You're simply human, human who has given too much for too long and who now deserves to receive. Rest is a form of receiving permission to stop, to breathe, to ask for help, maybe most importantly, to not be impressive. Because you are not here to be admired. You are here to live, to feel joy, to be still without guilt. The world may not reward you for slowing down, but your body will, your heart will, your inner child will. And slowly your life will begin to soften. The sharp edges will blur, pressure will ease. And you'll discover that you don't need to earn peace. You'll only need to stop running from it. Stillness can feel scary at first, like you're doing something wrong, like you're falling behind. But what if you're finally catching up with yourself? What if that quiet you fear is actually your soul saying, welcome home? You've been away for a long time, distracted, drained, disconnected. But now there is space to return, to sit down and rest inside your own life, even if just for a moment. Even if the world keeps spinning, you are allowed to stop. Not because you've earned it, but because you exist, because you matter. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply pause. With love, with honesty, with enough softness to finally feel like yourself again. Sometimes we wonder why we're so tired when life seems okay on the surface. But emotional fatigue doesn't need chaos to exist. It often comes from the quiet places, the parts of us that are never fully seen, the parts that nod and smile when all they want is to cry. We carry so much silently. Regrets we never talk about, roles we never chose, expectations that feel heavier with time, and even joy can become exhausting when we feel we must constantly perform it. This kind of tiredness can't be solved with sleep. Because it's not the body that's overworked, it's the self, the deep self, quietly screaming beneath all the masks. And that self needs kindness, not hustle. Not another productivity tip, just kindness. It's kindness in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you forgive yourself for needing rest, and in the way you no longer make your worth dependent on how much you do. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are just tired in a world that praises burnout, a world that confuses urgency with importance. It tells you to keep going even when you're falling apart. But what if you choose a different rhythm? One that honors pauses. One that listens when your body whispers instead of waiting for it to scream. Because healing begins in the whisper. It begins when you say, I don't need to do more. I need to feel more. Feel the grief you never had time to process. The fear you buried beneath busyness. The loneliness masked by constant connection. These emotions aren't here to break you. They're here to guide you back to yourself. To remind you that there's a softness inside you that's still alive, still waiting, still worthy. It's okay to not be strong all the time. To say I can't today. To cancel plans and crawl under a blanket. To cry in the middle of a perfectly normal Tuesday. These things don't make you less. They make you real. They make you human. And humanity is not measured in output. It's felt in presence. In the quiet act of staying with yourself through the heaviness, through the numbness, through the ache that doesn't have a name. Sometimes you don't even need to understand why you're tired. You just need to honor that you are. Honor the years you've spent surviving, the ways you've shown up, even when it cost you. The invisible work of keeping your inner world from collapsing. It's not nothing. That's courage. And now, that courage can look like rest. Like choosing peace over progress, stillness over noise. Being instead of proving. You are enough, even when you are still. Even when you're not climbing. Even when your only accomplishment today was breathing with intention. And maybe that's the point. Not to do everything, but to do what brings you back to life. The world will still ask more of you, but you don't always have to say yes. You can say yes to yourself instead. 2 mornings with no agenda. 2 evenings without guilt. To choosing rest, not as a reward, but as a right. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to need care. And you are allowed to be gentle with that need. Because inside every moment of softness is an act of rebellion, a refusal to let the world harden you. A choice to meet exhaustion with love, not shame. So let yourself be slow. Let yourself be quiet. Let yourself take up space even when you don't feel productive. There is power in your pause. There is healing in your surrender. Not giving up, but giving in to what you've needed all along. Maybe you don't need to figure everything out. Maybe you just need to come home to yourself and rest there. No demands, no explanations, just presence, just breath, just this moment, and the quiet knowing that it is enough, even enough. Even in your weariness, even in your undone, even in your soft, tired, beautiful being, you are not behind. You are exactly where you are meant to be, here now resting. And that in itself is everything. This is quiet philosophy, where thinking isn't loud, and life doesn't need to be either. Subscribe if you haven't already, not for noise, but for something you can actually feel.